Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Harne Podcast. I want to start today's episode by wishing all our listeners a very happy new year. I hope you will subscribe to the channel and make it bigger this new year. Now, today's episode is focused on strategy. And to talk about it, we have with us Tanmay Raj Sagar. Tanmay is currently working as a senior manager at the RBC Bank in Toronto. And on this episode, he provides his insight on how he got this job and what is his advice on people who want to pursue this role. Now, like this video, leave us a comment down below, share it with your friends, and press that bell icon. Let's dig into this one. Hello, Tanmay. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. How are you doing?
I'm really good, Raghav. Thank you so much for having me here. How are you?
I'm good as well. Welcome to the podcast, and I hope to extract a lot of useful information for our listeners from you today.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. So please start by telling us a little bit about your background, your work experience, please.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm currently working as a senior manager in the enterprise strategy and transformation team at RBC,
Mhm.
Royal Bank. So this team is essentially the corporate strategy team for the bank. I've always been in financial services. I have around 5 years of roughly 5 years of experience in the field. Initially, I started off my career with Tata Capital back in India, and the projects that I undertook over there were mostly focused on the retail business or retail side of finance. So it was a great kind of segue into the industry. It taught me a lot about how finance is really integrated in consumers' life, lives. What are the different products that people usually seek, and what is it that companies can do to kind of make their lives easier. So that's always a great place to start with. And as I progressed, I kind of understood that my interest lies towards strategy. So I did my MBA from Schulich, and after that, I started working in a business-focused strategy team at Scotiabank. That team focused on priority customers and how can Scotiabank kind of increase its footprint within those priority customers. And by priority customers, I mean any any customer segment that is of value to the bank. Newcomers is one, students is one, and I gradually moved. I wanted to kind of take it a level higher and kind of work in the corporate strategy field. And I was seeking out roles, which is where RBC was hiring, and I kind of segued into corporate strategy. I'm very fresh to the role. I started just, it's been like almost 2 months.
Mhm.
So still learning a lot, and it's definitely an exciting field to be in.
Sure. Thank you for that answer. And you have a very exciting background. So let's dig a little deeper into that. You don't have an engineering background. You are a BCom, which is a perfect background for MBA. But
Right.
from an Indian student, it's rare because a lot of them are engineers, as you must have noticed in our classroom as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, with a traditional business background, what is it that drew you towards strategy? And why did you choose to pursue your MBA?
Yeah, and that's a really interesting question, and that's a very good call out. So because you'd think that like in an MBA classroom, you would have people from a business background, which wasn't the case. Like there were so many engineers, and I was really like surprised at the mix. But at the same time, like you got to learn a lot from the diverse background. But talking about what drew me towards MBA, like I mentioned, I started my career with Tata Capital and in the retail side of things. So one of the first projects that I undertook at Tata was a partnership with Uber. So Tata was partnering with Uber, and this was back in 2015 when Uber was just coming into India. They wanted to get more cars on the road, and Tata wanted to kind of help them finance the entire their kind of market entry. I learned a lot of things, but I also realized that in order for a project or a strategy in itself to be successful, there are a lot of skills that I personally need to develop upon. Like you need to be a very good, you need to know how to manage people. You need to know how to engage stakeholders. You need to know how to kind of solve complicated and ambiguous problems which kind of arise in every field, not just financial services. And at that time, I kind of had it in my back that, okay, I need to kind of do a professional course. I did not know whether I wanted to do an MBA, master's, or where I wanted to do it from. After Tata, I kind of joined my family business for some time, which is in retail. So think of it like a Best Buy, but much smaller.
Yeah.
And that business, so my role over there was to expand our business from one to essentially 12 stores. And over there, it's kind of this thought kept coming back that even though I'm operating at a very at a level where people have a lot of expectations, there are certain skill sets that I need to polish upon. So that's how I kind of decided to do my MBA. Having a background in commerce definitely helped, because a lot of subjects that kind of set the foundation for us in our MBA, I already was lucky enough to have certain knowledge of that, be it accounting, be it commerce, be so like those were the things that I had. But at the same time, like it was a short-lived advantage, because during our MBA we got to learn a lot. Strategy was something always of interest to me. I like the idea of just solving complicated problems, but I had no idea how vast strategy is, or how vast this domain is. I learned more about it during my MBA, and I'm gonna just uh, pause there and see if you have any follow-up questions there.
Yeah, I do have a follow-up question over there. If you go online, I'm sure you must have noticed there is a lot of flack which the MBA degree gets, especially from
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs. And you have that
Right.
experience of managing your family business and
Mm-hmm.
starting from one store to expanding it further. So
Right.
with that experience prior to your MBA, and now that you have your MBA, do you see any difference in your approach, and what did you learn during your MBA which helped you change that mindset?
Absolutely. And let me start off with this one statement that MBA is probably the best investment I've ever made. It has really transformed the way I've kind of thought. It's really matured me in a lot of ways. And it's a combination of both the courses that you take and the people that you meet. So before, when I was kind of solving, like when I was working for my family business, I I definitely lacked confidence. I knew that there are certain things that can be done. I used to go ahead and do it, but I had no idea if the KPIs that I'm using to kind of measure my success or measure the success of the business are correct. I had no idea what the outcomes would be and how can we really quantify it. So essentially, I did have some experience, but I lacked those basic pillars that are needed to make a project successful. Which is why during my MBA, and the courses that I took, especially courses around strategy, they really help shape your thinking. They really help kind of structure what you already know, and also plug in what's missing. Like I said, strategy is a vast field, and really being able to break down is something that a lot of people are natural at, but MBA does help you to does kind of take you a long way.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, because the people who say that no, MBA is just a waste of your time, don't spend your money on it. If you look at their organizational employees, most of them would have an MBA. So they don't
Yeah,
put their money where the mouth is. So anyway,
I
let's
I
yeah, go
agree,
ahead.
and I just think everyone has their own journey. A lot of my colleagues have kind of continued what they were doing pre MBA, and for them MBA like it has helped them develop in a lot of ways, but they don't believe that the investment is worth it. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who have really transformed. Like myself, I have really learned a lot during my MBA, and it's definitely helped me get where I am or land the jobs that I'm doing right now.
Sure, and we'll definitely talk about that later. So
Hmm.
now let's start with where you had paused earlier. You thought that you lacked certain skills and you wanted to get an MBA to polish those skills. So how did you then decide upon the Schulich School of Business?
Yeah. So while deciding where to pursue my MBA, I kind of had three criteria, and which were, it needs to be like in a cosmopolitan city. it needs to kind of be a mix of integrated cultures. So which kind of landed me to either either it has to be India or Canada or Australia. After that, I did not want to kind of pursue in India because I did want to kind of experience what it is like to study at an international school. So I was very familiar with the Indian approach of teaching, which is amazing. But I just wanted a different flavor. So India was out, so that's how I landed on kind of Canada and Australia. Canada definitely had better immigration policies, and it's more immigrant friendly. So Australia was out. In Canada, I was looking at a lot of different schools, Ivy, Schulich, Rotman. I guess like everyone else, all the top schools. Schulich stood out for me because of two things. One, its focus on kind of marketing strategy and strategy in general. The alumni that I connected with pre MBA, they were really helpful. They were really nice. Like they had a lot of information to give, which wasn't the case with some of the other B schools that I reached out to. And second was their MBA in India program, because at that time, like I said, I was still running my family business, so I wanted so this kind of worked out because it was giving me the best of both worlds. I got to stay in India or start my degree in India while and then kind of move to to Canada. So I was able to kind of manage my business in the initial months and then just migrate here. So it just worked out well.
And I can already see that you're a great manager, because as a manager, you're supposed to manage your time very efficiently. So doing that while you were studying and managing your own business back home must have taken a lot of effort on your end. So kudos to you for doing that. Now let's start with your MBA journey. You started your MBA, did 1 year in India, came to Canada, and now you're working as a senior manager at RBC. So could you tell us what is it that you do on a day-to-day, and then a big picture of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in the enterprise strategy and transformation team at RBC, which, like I mentioned, is the corporate strategy team for the bank. So the mandate, from a broader level, the mandate of this team is to essentially align what is the strategic direction that the bank has to take in the next year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, and in the next 15 years. What are some of those banking trends that are up and coming where RBC really needs to play? And what are some of those business lines that RBC needs to focus on more than others? So that's kind of a big level picture. A big mandate of this team is to essentially align on board strategy, or kind of craft a board strategy for their annual meeting. So that's one of the bigger projects that the team undertakes, just to kind of sum up all the activities that are happening at RBC, all the activities that are happening in the banking industry, what are the trends, and then align with the board of directors, just to say that these are the things that we want to focus on in the short and the long term. That's a broad level picture. From a day-to-day, as a senior manager, there are a lot of responsibilities, because a senior manager is kind of a position where you have to undertake a lot of work or do a lot of work yourself, and also manage a lot of expectations from the stakeholder. And as you kind of go up the hierarchy, the first aspect, which is essentially putting in the grunt work, it kind of reduces. But as a manager or as a senior manager, you need to put in the work. From a day-to-day, it involves a lot of brainstorming sessions. It involves a lot of discussions on the project that you are assigned on, or you are working on. It involves a lot of slide making. So if that's my honest advice, if you want to break into corporate strategy, you have to love PowerPoint and you have to love Excel. You can't do without it. Yeah, it definitely involves a lot of slide making. And like I mentioned, it's like an internal consulting team for the bank. So it just works as a normal consulting project, but your client is RBC and its businesses. So yeah, that's about it.
All right. And with the current scenario, there is an expectation that we might be heading towards a recession. So if you could, I mean, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to share it or not, but with this trend coming up, what is the strategy of the big banks? What are they heading towards?
I mean, so RBC has this kind of a separate department which is called thought leadership, and they do it has a lot of different economists talking about this topic. I think it is like absolutely right. We are definitely heading towards a recession-like scenario, and whether we decide to call it one or not is just up to the policymakers. From a big bank's perspective, I can tell you, like, I mean, from it's business as usual for now. From a hiring perspective or getting more people in, we've already seen the impact on like on the tech sector and companies that aren't really making money. From a bigger bank's perspective, I think it's relatively safer. From an employment perspective, their first line of defense in such a scenario would definitely be a hiring freeze, and the second line would be to kind of let people go, and they haven't announced any yet. So I think it's relatively safer to work at a company that earns billions of dollars in even through pandemic. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And on that note, let us talk about how you got your job, because a lot of people will now be willing to work for big organizations, because startups
Definitely.
in this scenario, it's a little riskier to work for them. Not saying that it's something bad is going to happen, but it's a little riskier. So let's talk about how you got your job at Scotiabank first, and then I'll ask you your follow-up questions for RBC.
Yeah. Uh, I guess like I want to start off by saying that a lot of people think that there's one right method to approach the job market. My personal belief is there like there's no cookie cutter approach. It has to be a combination of a lot of things that you do, which essentially land the job that you want to get. The first like the starting point is to be really clear about what you want, because once you are convinced, only then will you be able to convince the hiring manager. I've seen a lot of people apply for a lot of jobs across strategy, across marketing, across different business lines, which in my opinion is not the right approach. So just having a very clear picture of what you want or what function you want to get in is very, very, very important. Once
And
you have,
let
Mhm.
me just pause you there for just a
Yeah,
second,
for sure.
because this is the question a lot of people ask me. How do you get that clarity? Because you were very clear that you wanted to pursue a career in strategy because you had worked in it earlier. But for
Right.
somebody who is not that clear, how can they explore what is it that they really want to do?
That's a very, very good question. And I personally, I've been thinking about it a lot. And I honestly, I just feel that everyone has their own journey. And this is one thing where you can't really align KPIs that, you know what, if I do these three things, I'm going to get that clarity. I just don't think it works that way. I'm a big believer of just kind of doing things that make sense for you in the moment. And after that, kind of deciding if it fits your personality type or what you want to do. Uh, Choosing the courses that MBA I think is definitely a good playground, because you can pick different internships, you can pick different courses just to try it out and see what you really enjoy. But I think at the end of the day, everyone has their own kind of path that they want to take. But you should kind of go for what is it that you do you have fun while doing, like
Sure.
yeah, because I mean we have to work for the next probably 30 years of our life, and if you aren't having fun at work, then you aren't really like what is it all about?
Yeah, that's a great answer, because a lot of people, what they do is they follow the herd or follow the money, because like 10 years from earlier it was investment banking, so everyone wanted to be
Right.
an investment banker. Now it's more towards management consulting. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
wants to be a consultant, and as you rightly said, you will be working for at least next 30 years. So it's
Yeah,
important to choose a career which you have fun with. All right. So that's a great
absolutely.
answer. Thank you. And before I
Yeah.
interrupted you, you were saying, please continue.
Yeah, so I was just saying that uh, while when you are in the job market, there are a couple of things that you need to be very sure of. And the first one that trumps everything is the function that you want to be in. Like, really think about what is it that you like doing on a day-to-day basis, and what are the jobs out there that align to that. After function comes the industry that you want to be in. And honestly, I like from where I come from, I've always felt that industry is secondary, because if you are an excellent policy maker or an excellent strategy maker, there will be companies in the retail space that would kind of value your skill set. There can be companies in the banking space that value that skill set. So I think once you have that clarity on the function that you want to be in, it industry is kind of secondary. So what worked well for me is a combination of cold applications and networking. When we were graduating, the when like we were just out in the job market wasn't as lucrative. There were only a few people that were hiring, and Scotiabank had an opportunity on their team. It was a strategy centric role, and it worked out well because I could leverage my previous experience in the financial services field while kind of segueing into a strategy role. So that's the thing that I knew for a fact that I brought to the table. And I reached out to a lot of people across the bank on LinkedIn. I networked with them. I spoke to them. None of it worked, but I put out a cold application as well. So the people that I spoke to, they gave me really good advice, but they didn't really help me from an application standpoint, because in such large companies, it's very difficult to get a hold of the right person, or the person who's really hiring, unless it's specifically laid out on LinkedIn. Uh, so I did network, got to learn a lot about the bank, but my application was still a cold application, and they liked my resume, and they kind of scheduled an interview. What worked well for me is that since I already networked with so many people, I knew about the bank a little bit more than I had previously. So even though I got through the door via a cold application, networking helped kind of accelerate my interviews and really talk about stuff that's relevant. So back to my point, when you are in the job market, there's no cookie cutter approach. I think you have to, it's a numbers game. You have to talk to people. You have to kind of understand what is it that you're getting into. And you also have to put in your applications, apply just point blank at the jobs that you like. That's how I got into Scotiabank.
And that's a wonderful story because, like you said, you networked and that did not work, but the cold application worked. And the networking helped you during the job interview process because you knew
Absolutely.
about the bank because you had spoken to so many people earlier.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
on that note, I mean, because your cold application worked, so I imagine your resume must have been top notch. So, could you please give some pointers to our listeners who are thinking about applying to strategy roles? What should that resume, keywords, what are the keywords
Yeah.
and what should it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you are breaking into a strategy role, the base of any strategy role, be it business, be it corporate, be it any strategy, the base is problem solving. So I think one important takeaway for me was that I went back, looked at my career path, and really picked on the things that kind of aligned with an instance where I was involved in problem solving, and so that was really important. Highlighting some of your hard skill set is also something that a lot of recruiters look for. So pulling out instances where you've engaged in data modeling, or pulling out instances where you've engaged in deck building, that's important too. And the third piece would be executive exposure. So instances where you've kind of worked towards influencing senior executives or senior people at the firm is also something very important, because if you're working at a big company in a strategy role, it eventually it boils down to how well can you tailor your story to convince the senior execs at the bank or whatever company that you're working for, because at the end of the day you're fighting for a limited fund pool, and if you are, are convinced on your strategy, that's something that works. So yes, instances of problem solving, instances of data modeling and slide building, and instances of stakeholder management, especially executive management, are something that I would highlight on my resume if I'm looking at a strategy role. And then they're good to have in instances like project management is a very good experience that's required in a strategy role. Team building is another one. That's there. One thing that I would caution, a word of caution is don't aim at boiling the ocean, because I know for a fact that we as individuals love what we have done and we want to highlight everything through our resume, which is sometimes not the perfect approach, because then the recruiter kind of gets lost, and the points that you really want to bring out, they get lost in the story that you're saying. So keep it short and precise, maybe limited to one page. That's the kind of best way to go about it, and really focus on the areas that you want to highlight.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And as you said, don't try to boil the ocean. Maybe, study the job description very carefully and look for what is it that they want from your experience. And you could choose to highlight those experiences on your resume. That could work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So moving forward, now the lessons which you had learned from networking and your getting your first job, how did you apply those, and what different did you do when you applied for your second job?
Yeah. So while I was at Scotia, I spent the first few months really learning about the banking industry, really learning about the job, and also really learning about what's next for me. So I kind of understood that, okay, so at Scotia I was in a business strategy role. The objective of the team was essentially driven by profitability and more market share. I kind of figured that I want to kind of operate at a level which is a notch higher. Like, I want to focus on the bigger picture more than focusing on day-to-day business strategy. And I was very, very selective to the roles that I was applying to. So since I was already working in a good job, I had that leeway to kind of wait it out and just see what fits well for me. I kind of developed a knack for enterprise strategy, and I knew for a fact that that's the role I want to break into. I want to really understand how big corporations think, how they work, how they really manage the different business verticals. So that's when the RBC opportunity came out, and I was very, very determined that this is something that perfectly aligns with what's next for me, where I want to get into. And I knew for a fact that I want to break into that. Being in a bank, I kind of understood how the different verticals worked, which helped me network. And RBC was entirely networking. I did not even send out my resume. So because it was entirely networking, I reached out to people on LinkedIn. I probably must have reached out to at least 50 odd people working in the corporate strategy realm of the bank. Maybe five.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe five of them agreed to connect. And there was this one lady who was really, really helpful. She really understood where I'm coming from. She really understood why I want to get into the team, and she's the one who kind of took my application forward. So, like I mentioned, it was definitely a numbers game again, and it's just a matter of finding that right person who really sees where you're coming from and can really help you get there. So that's how I got my foot into the door. After that, this was definitely not an easy role to get into. There were like 6 rounds of interview, 5 case studies. There was a lot of preparation that went behind it. But yes, to your question, just to get your foot into the door, it's really helpful to kind of nail your story down. Really think about what is it that makes you the perfect candidate for this role, and then talk to the people in a similar fashion.
Yeah, that's great. And as you said earlier, from your experience, we can see that even for two different jobs for the same person, the same approach does not work. So your first job, you got it
Absolutely.
through cold application. The second was you did not even submit your application. It was
Yeah,
just through
absolutely.
network. So
Absolutely.
there's a different story every single time. So
Right.
now, Tanmaya, could you please talk about the interview process? That you said there is a rigorous interview process before you get that job, and there are case studies involved. So how do you
Yeah.
prepare for that?
Yeah. So, like, the interview process for this role worked exactly as you would expect it for a McKinsey or a Bain. They had case studies, different kind of types of case studies laid out across different interviews. So My first interview was a written case wherein I received a case an hour prior to my interview, and I had 1 hour to prepare for it and kind of present it. It was a market expansion and market entry case. In my second interview, it was more of a verbal case, wherein it was an interviewer-led case. So during the interview, she kind of told me that it was a hypothetical situation, that this is what the case is, and it was on me to kind of prompt, ask more questions, and then eventually come up with a recommendation on the spot. And the third case was with the VP. It was also an interviewer led verbal case. I think to prepare for the case, to prepare for such interviews, one thing that really helped me was a course that I'd taken back at Schulich, which was case analysis and presentation. Because even though we study a lot about strategy, that's one course that really helped me structure my thoughts, structure how is it that you can approach a case. Because at the end of the day, if you are in a strategy role, every project that you undertake is essentially a case. So so having that structure or having that framework in your head is really important, and that course really helps shape that up. I like you definitely have to practice cases, because if you are solving a case for the first time on the day of your interview, the interviewer will know. So you definitely have to have that practice. There are a ton of materials available online. There's this website called Case and Prep, which is what I use. They have a list of different cases, both uh, verbal and non-verbal. So you just need to take your time, practice the different cases, and like, I mean, what the interviewer looks for is not how many frameworks you know, but how can you really apply those frameworks. So I mean, if you go into the interview with a preconceived notion that, okay, I'm going to apply these five frameworks, and they just don't fit into that case, it doesn't work. So you really need to pick which one to apply, where to apply it, and how to apply it. I want to just pause there and see if you have any deeper or specific questions there.
No, I can see that the point which you made earlier, that you need to really practice before you face those interviews, because if you're doing it for the first time, the interviewer will definitely know. So it's very
Yeah,
important to practice. And because once you practice, you will not have any preconceived notions. Like you said, before you go for that interview, you will not have any preconceived notions that I have to apply these frameworks. So practice makes that
exactly.
perfect. All right. And on that note, my last question to you, Tanmay, is you have worked on expansion in India and expanding businesses here in Canada. So do you see any differences in the customer mindsets back in India and here in Canada?
Uh, yeah, definitely. I think there are two key macro factors that kind of define it. One is kind of the volume of customers, and second is definitely the purchasing power. So I think in India, we get a lot of product in the market which is made to be affordable, which goes by volumes, which goes by masses, and that's not the same case in Canada. In Canada, I think I've seen it across sectors. You have a limited number of options. Even like look at banking, we have like probably 10 credit cards in the market across the five banks, but they really offer value to a customer from a premium standpoint. So I think that's one key difference. I think the Canadian market is much more developed, which is a fact. It has a lot of industries have reached that stage of consolidation, where in India it's really booming. A lot of different things are coming up. So that's another thing that kind of defines how expansion works in a developed, more settled market versus a developing market. Uh, and lastly, I think Canada is much more integrated with the US. There are a lot of US companies that also operate here, and those companies have really nailed down the tech in the domain that they operate. Again, India has all those opportunities. India has its own patented technology and companies that come up. So I think from an opportunity perspective, if you want to work in a corporation, Canada definitely has much better options. But if you kind of want to work at a startup, I think I would prefer India.
All right. And on that note, we will end this. Thank you so much for your time. You provided some really impressive and valuable insights. We wish you all the best and hope you'll come back again for another episode.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, Raghav.
Right. I will put in your LinkedIn profile's description so that if anyone wants to get in touch with you and wants more advice, they can get in touch. And I hope you'll agree to speak with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Take care and have a great rest
All
of
right.
your day.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye-bye.
And that was the video for today. I hope you liked it. Let me request you again to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Share it with your friends and press the bell icon. This is me, Raghavendra Harne, signing off. Take care.